welcome to another episode of Convos with Sazon with myself, Gata Mejia. I'm extremely excited to introduce my guest for today. With me is Joffre Noguera. He is a pastry chef and a multimedia artist. So first of all, thank you so much for coming. How are you doing today?
No, thank you for having me. This is, first of all, I love yapping. So when you said it, hey, you want to be on a podcast? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
So, okay, you came to the right place. I love yapping too. So I'm sure this hour will fly by. So, but we'll get to, you know, your pastry chefing and your multimedia artistry. But aside from all of that, who are you at your core? If you were to give like a personal elevator pitch, what would it be?
Okay, so this is a question that has been haunting me my whole life. So when people are like, oh yeah, but who are you? Like I've done auditions for Food Network, for shows, competitions, and that question, I feel like it's the hardest question for me to answer. Yeah. To put it in the most simplest term, I'm Joffre, because I do so many different things. I'm always a person that's constantly learning, constantly trying to do new things, but essentially down to the core, I am a creator. I love helping people to create their identities. I love to help people create like what they want in life or bring the reality into or just refine it either way. But so at the end of the day, I am a creator. You could say like freelancer, whatever the wind takes me, to be honest. But at the end of the day, pastry chef, artist, whatever label you want to have on me. I'm a hooker, basically. I'm an art hooker.
Okay, so when you and I first met,
Yes.
you described yourself as a Renaissance man.
Yes.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper into that because not many people introduce themselves as that. You know, I love asking the question that I just did because people usually resort to, oh, you know, I've been in New York for X amount of time.
Yeah.
They resort to, oh, in my case, I'm a journalist
Yes.
or whatever their job title is, but you don't actually get any insight into who they are at their core. So tell me more. You're a Renaissance man.
Yeah. So I actually I didn't put that label on myself. I remember the first time I actually got that label onto me was in culinary school. So it was just one class. We had the chef instructor right there. And I was just talking about the things that I was doing. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to edit videos right now. I've been doing recipes at night after school. And then also I could do like silly voices and all that type of stuff. And the teacher jokingly was like, oh, so you're a Renaissance man because you're doing a lot of stuff. So.
And it kind of stuck.
Yeah, no, it just kind of stuck. And then people are like, oh, you're a jack of all trades. I'm like, no, because everything I do, I put 100% on it. And then
Joffre of all trades.
Yeah, Joffre of all trades. And I try to perfect whatever I'm doing. So I'm very detailed on anything I'm doing. Like for instance, with pastries, obviously that's my strongest tool I have. But very detailed on it. I taste everything. I make sure the design's good. But unfortunately, due to traffic, the pastries got a little bit messed up.
Listen, the stomach does not judge, and I don't judge either. So I'm super excited to try what you brought.
Yeah.
But to talk about, you as a pastry chef, tell me about how you got started there, because not many people can say, oh, by the way, I'm a pastry chef, and they have all these collections, which we'll get into as well.
So, okay, this is actually very interesting because I have a very unique start and we're entering just the baking in general. So, in my time, in restaurants, I always ask that question, oh, how did you get into it? How did you get into it? It's always a common question to ask, how did you get into cooking and stuff like that? And usually the most common answer is oh, yeah, I was there with my mom or my dad, and we'd be cooking, or my grandma, anyone, family member, and I'm always there in the kitchen with them. I was like, oh, okay, that's so sweet. The funniest one I've heard was a French chef. He was like, yeah, when I was younger, my mom, she would cook, and it was just horrible every time, so I had to step in and start cooking. But the way how I got introduced into baking, so before even baking, I was a heavy art kid. Heavy art kid. Always had Play-Doh on me.
Love that.
Literally, constantly. Even until I was in culinary school.
There's no shame.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the shift into pastry was not a good one. It was actually it was one of the most traumatic things in my life. So when I was 12 years old, my mom was admitted to the hospital for a whole summer. She was suffering from lupus, and it was her 4th year of lupus, and they discovered her having lupus in its late stage. So it was like very intense that she was having, and so she was in the hospital for the whole summer. She was going in and out of emergency care, not emergency care, intensive care.
unit.
Yes, yeah. So and also that it was also hard because my birthday is in August,
Yeah.
so like I wasn't able to see her because like if she sees anyone and there's any like intense emotions, that will negatively affect her health. That could like put her in a coma or anything. It was
Was she also immunocompromised?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, the summer passed. We were in my sister and I. We were in was I in elementary? No, my sister was in high school. I think because what was it? That was 8th grade year. Yeah, my sister's 1 year older than me, so I think she was in high school at that moment. Yeah. I just remember getting out of school. One of my mom's friends were like, "You have to come with us right now," and I was like, "What is happening?" And we were rushing, to the hospital because that like she was. I don't want to say the word, but yeah, no. So because of that, that put me into a very depressive state. I lost the ability to draw, paint, anything. Like I literally tried my best to draw something. I couldn't even make a stick figure. And then a year later, this is actually how I got into pastry. So
First of all, I'm so sorry you
Yeah.
went through that. I'm sorry.
it's part of life. It's already been like
It
X amount of
is.
years. So
It is. But you, like you
Yeah.
said, it's traumatic.
it is traumatic.
Nonetheless.
Yeah. So then a year later, in high school, it was me and my 3 friends. We were like, you know what? We're hanging out at my house. I used to live next to Toys R Us, and it was right after. This was
Every child's dream.
Oh my gosh.
The mecca of toys.
No, it was like having a carrot dangle in front of your face and never getting it. Unless if I saved my lunch money. So it was right after Christmas, so there was a lot of Christmas stuff on discount, and we saw that the gingerbread cake, kits were all on discount. They're like 90% off, so they were like 90
In
cents.
girl math, that's free.
Oh my gosh, we were like we could do this, and we all like gathered our money because we're like freshmen, and we got 2 kits. So we were like, oh, let's do it. Let's just decorate, have fun. I never done it before, so we did it, and I just got obsessed with it. Just obsessed with making these gingerbread kits. Saved up my lunch money, went to Toys R Us to just get more and more kits to the point that literally my fridge was just filled with gingerbread trains and houses to the point that my dad couldn't buy groceries.
Oh my gosh.
So like I was just obsessed with it, and then like after that I got into cake making, and then like it became this whole journey of pastry that is documented. Like my whole like for 13 years it's already been documented via cake itself. So each and every year during those 13 years, I recorded myself like basically like a art piece that was supposed to be like what represented myself during that year via cake. That was my birthday cake. So
Is that how you still approach every birthday cake of yours?
no, so the last one was the 13th one. That was 2020. What was 2024? That was last year was actually my first year not having a cake, and that was just bizarre. So I did a photo shoot.
Naturally, something else creative nonetheless.
Yes, but it was just weird because like with the birthday cakes, during that year leading up to the cake, I already know what I'm gonna do. I already know like the design or the concept of it. So it's basically manifesting like what I want to work on that year, and then like
That's beautiful.
and then it just happens, and then the cake transforms like throughout the whole year. It transforms. Like the day after my birthday, I would already start thinking about the next cake.
Tell us about a few of the cakes.
So let's start off with the first one. Let's start out the one that started everything.
Okay.
So the first one, as growing up as a Latino in the New York area, you have Dominican cake for everything: bodas, cumpleaños, like quinceañeras, communions, all of that. It's always going to be Dominican cake. I got annoyed of it. So that's actually sparked me going like, I'm going to make my own cake. I'm going to make it whatever I want it to be.
Love it.
So it was a three-tier cake. The bottom was a vanilla cake, dyed in cotton candy colors, covered in cotton candy. Then the second tier was chocolate. So it was chocolate cake, chocolate fudge inside, chocolate fondant, and then chocolate drizzle on it. And then on the top tier, it was red velvet with white fondant, vanilla frosting inside instead of cream cheese frosting. Because at that time, I didn't know what the frosting was of red velvet. and it was like decorated with like blue and white star tip, like not rosettes, but like just little daps.
How long did it take you to make that?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
But usually the cakes, each one, I give myself 3 days. So
Wow.
for like 13 years, I would take off 3 days out of work, out of my time, and just work on it. Most likely, I just like sleep, what, 1 hour a day?
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it was something that you did for you. So
it was
no
a-
amount of time will ever be enough.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
100%. And it's an art piece. It's a 13-year art piece that was continuous. It was like looking back at it, it's insane. And like let's go now jump forward to the last cake. The last cake was a great cake. I really do love that cake so much because that cake was actually a reinvention design of the first ever cake I made, which was a flesh cake that I made for my friend's heavy metal band for their first performance. So it
Okay.
was like this full circle moment because like once again, each and every year does represent myself, and like that year, I truly felt comfortable in my skin. Like
That's so beautiful.
yeah, no, so that's why it was just like just a coincidence that like that also that year was also not semi but very traumatic because like I felt like each and every month was just a reflection of the years past to the like even another a heavy traumatic moment happened again which reflected like my mom's passing. It was my cousin, he passed in almost the exact same way as my mom, so like we were there in a hospital. It was intense. Like oh gosh, I'm starting to tear up.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it's okay.
So like that year was literally just I don't know. It was just the universe was just like, hey, this whole year you're just gonna reflect because this is the last cake, and and it was that. So it was just such a coincidence that like everything happened. That's also I think that was also when we recorded that because yeah at that age I also recorded the Gingerbread Showdown for Food Network,
Which
which
that too.
which is insane because that was also the time we recorded was also the exact date of my mom's death.
Wow. Do you believe in signs from the universe?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I'm going to get to that real quick before I go on a full tangent. Um but yeah, no, and it's just insane that it was a gingerbread showdown, which was the first thing that got
Yeah,
me
your
into
start.
pastry. So it was like beginning to end chapter. It was like the
Wow.
close of a book. But yeah, so the flesh cake, it was the art pieces for it. I just loved so much. There were two, so each and every cake themselves. After the third cake I made, each one goes along with a hint that's an art piece, two art pieces. So the last one was literally a whole representation of like the Last Supper. The first
Wow.
one was called "This Is My Body," which was my head on a silver platter, and just covered around my head was all little knickknacks and trinkets or stuff like that, representing all the past cakes in this red velvet church cathedral textured wall that I made out of paper and tea staining. And then the second one was called "This Is My Blood," which is more minimalistic, still having this elements of the red velvet design elements from the past one, but it was just more simplistic of my hand with the blood going to
Such
this dish.
vision. I love it. I mean, truly,
Yeah.
and that reflects your artistry.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how you landed on the number 13.
So I was born on the 13th.
So very intentional.
So I was 13 years old when my mom passed away. It was 13 years since 13 it was 13 years on the anniversary when we filmed Gingerbread Showdown. So 13 has just been constantly repeating in my life as just like a significant moment. Not good luck, not bad luck, but just like hey,
The
this is
reality and everything that comes with it. Would you say that through cakes, right, and through all the pastries that you make, that's kind of how you got your spark back into dipping your toe
100%.
back into artistry?
100%. That was actually cake number 3. Cake number 3 was called the Renaissance cake. So that's when I was getting back into drawing. I remember the first drawing I made was, I believe it was the Red Queen, but my interpretation, it was a sketch, but it was like it was like almost like a fashion illustration of this beautiful dress, corset embroidery on top, but the dress on the bottom is like this big poofy dress with just roses covered around it with black thorns spiking out of it, and then that like that was the cake was like the whole theme of that cake was like the flavor was rose berries. It had like bloody red roses design on it with the black thorns, everything, because it was the Renaissance cake. It was a rebirth. It was flowers blooming again. It was coming back. So yeah, no, pastry really did help me a lot when I was going through the depression. The first four cakes, that series, because it's you could actually block it off in different series. That was called the Recovery series.
I'm so fascinated, honestly, and hats off to you for the amount of thought that very clearly has gone into everything that you've done up until this point. And people may not consider pastry chefs artists, right? Or like the traditional definition, whatever that means, you know what I mean? But I think it's beautiful, honestly. I hope you give yourself props for the work that you do because number one, I'm sure it's not easy.
It's not.
And also not everyone can do it. And talking about, you know, it not being easy, right? Why don't you tell me a little bit about aspects of being a pastry chef that people might not know or give enough credit for? So for example, ahead of your birthday cakes, right? You would take 3 days. I had no idea that it could possibly take that long, right?
Yeah.
So what are a couple more surprising elements about the work that you do?
Okay, so I feel like now more than ever, people are now starting to understand like the difficulties of pastries, of how precise you have to be. Like your best friend is a measuring scale. Like you do everything down to the gram.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are now like understanding that, but they don't understand that like pastry itself. If you're like for example, you could be a baker, you could be a cake decorator, but a pastry chef is basically like the all around knowing the most of how to do everything. But they're like in the restaurant industry and stuff like that, so it's a bit more fast paced. Everything. They really have to like be a Renaissance person or a jacks of all trades because pastry could be simply like translated into art pretty easily. I remember one time one of my chefs, she was making a cake, but on the cake design, they wanted to have like watercolored sunflowers. So she was there. I remember I was clocking out and she was just sitting there in the pastry station, just like with food coloring, vodka, for then it could just evaporate and just like stay there, and just watercolor painting it because she knows how to watercolor paint. And before she became a pastry chef, she was an architect. She went to school for architect. So there was a lot of elements that she was using it with the structure of the cake itself to be stable, but also she knows how to paint. She knows how to do all these stuff. And like a lot of pastry chefs are like multi-talented people. A lot of people in the restaurant industry are multi-talented people.
That's incredible. What would you say is the hardest ingredient to work with?
Ooh, okay, wow, that is.
You're like, how much time do you have?
I'm first of all, I'm trying to find which one's the hardest one because it really does have to match with like your skills, like which ones you prefer most.
Yeah.
Like for instance, everyone knows that the macaron is like one of the hardest things because it's so finicky. For me, I learned how to make macarons when I was like 15, so
Casual.
literally all the pastries here are all the things I was like, okay, I didn't have enough time to like prep anything. What is the fastest things I can make? So it really just depends on the person themselves. Like for me, I'm not a big bread person. Like
You know what? Me neither.
I don't like making bread that much. So like that's what messes me up a lot with proofing and how to proof it properly. I remember I was working at a cafe in Brooklyn called Awkward Scone, RIP, because of the pandemic.
Oh no.
And we had donuts. We had brioche donuts, so good. I was the morning baker, so I'm the one who opens the shop, starts everything, bakes off everything, fries everything, and the co-owner, he came to me. He's like, "These donuts are bad. They're not proofed properly. Like one side's lopsided. Like it was all that." I was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like I've made donuts before. What is going on with this?" It's at the end of the day, there's so many different types of recipes and so many different types of styles and techniques on just to make one thing. So it's like, it really depends on like what is your knowledge prior to that.
Yeah.
And then you'll always learn something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned being a perfectionist earlier. As a fellow perfectionist, I can absolutely relate to maybe tackling something that you haven't done before, but you have extremely high expectations for yourself. So how have you balanced your perfectionism, right? And giving yourself grace at times, especially in moments where it's your first time doing it or you're trying to see what sticks. Is there a point in which you're like, you know what, I'll take what I can get? Or do you truly hold yourself to the standard of, unless it's perfect, I'm not putting it out there?
So I actually learned that not being perfect is okay. I would say at a
Amen to that.
really young age, because when I started baking in high school, like literally I would just like try stuff out, and if it's not in my design or how I wanted it to be, I would literally throw out a full-blown cake in the trash. My dad and my sister will be so pissed off. They're like, we could have ate it.
Yes.
And I was like, no, it's
No
not.
se desperdicia.
Yeah, yeah. And it like, they're like, what the? And I was like, it's not good. It's not good. But like throughout the years, I've really learned like not being perfect is okay. But in the restaurants, you do have to be like, you do have to have a very sharp eye. There's like, I would say there's a very, very tiny sliver of not being perfect.
Yeah, because no one starts perfect,
Yeah.
right? It comes with time and
Yeah.
with practice.
Yeah, and another great representation of me understanding that perfectionism is not always the good thing. My last birthday cake, that was an intense cake to make, because literally those 3 days were just insane making the cake. It was, the cake outside was covered in modeling chocolate, color matched to my skin. And then literally the day before, the day before my birthday, I went out with my friends. We went to House of Yes. We saw the adult circus, and then we went out to different clubs after that, and then we went back to I went back to my place. My friend, she drove me back, and mind you, once again, 3 days, 1 hour sleep per day.
Had you finished the cake at this point or no?
No.
Oh my gosh.
So I just remembered coming back exhausted. Literally, my friend, when she was driving me back home, she was like, we were just talking. It was like 4 a.m. in the morning. And at one point, she was like, oh yeah, no, that was really great. What was your favorite part of the show? And I was like, I just had, and she,
Like, I'm hilarious.
No, I couldn't speak. And then at that moment, I was like, I need to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then the cake itself, when I was finishing it up, there was ideas that I wanted to have onto it, but then at the end of it, I was like, I'm just exhausted. I'm tired. I can't push myself anymore. This is my limit. If the universe wants this cake to be this design, I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's the flesh cake. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's not supposed to be. The inside of the cake itself, the layers have a gradient distortion into it. So you know how like you cut open a cake, it has
Beautiful.
layers?
I love that. It's so aesthetically pleasing.
So that cake, the top layer is your just normal cake. Middle layer, the top part of it was normal, but then the bottom layer starts to get like intertwiny with the layers, and then the bottom one's just full chaos, because the whole purpose of it is like when you cut into the cake, it looks like marbling of meat.
And that's almost poetic too, because when you think about a person, right? 9 times out of 10, what they're projecting on the outside is like perfection. Yeah. But as you start to peel the layers, right, you start realizing, okay, there's a lot of depth to this person, and it's okay that they're not perfect.
Yeah.
But there's a lot going on there, you know?
Oh,
and so it's very
100%,
poetic
yeah.
in the sense that you described
Yeah.
it. Clearly, you have talent, right? Which we'll get to tasting in a little bit. I'm excited. And you have such a unique vision. But what else would you say sets you apart that you would maybe describe as like the Joffre touch?
So I do like to constantly change, constantly learn. I'm not always going to be like staying in one thing. Like for instance, right now I'm working with 2 artists with their concepts and ideas. One of them, he is he goes like in trap reggaeton, Jersey house type of music. The best way I could describe him is dark club.
Okay.
So I picked out his color gradients. I picked out his color story. I picked out like how we're gonna do stuff and everything like that. I was like giving him advice and be like X, Y, and Z. This is like gonna be a nice skeleton to format for then like if you're feeling like overwhelmed and you're like I don't know what to do, just go back to the skeleton. There you go. So it's like very much dark club. So we go with that type of vibes. And then the other artist I'm working with, he's a painter, but his style is very like. The best way I could describe it is he does Polaroids of his life in paintings.
Fascinating.
So like his paintings are very inspired of like what he's experiencing. So he has this beautiful painting of a pigeon because obviously New York City area, pigeons are everywhere.
Yeah.
And he does love working with Polaroids, and you could see his aesthetics is very daytime-esque. So like I do love to jump into different things and learn about it and do heavy research about it also as well. So if there's something I don't know, I'm 100% researching. And if there's something that I'm working with a person, I do like a sit down deep dive talk with them and be like, hey, what is this? And I don't even ask them questions about like, what do you want in your image? I'm like, hey, so like, what are your favorite cartoons? What are your favorite musics? Because a lot of stuff I've noticed people when they like talk about like their ideas and stuff like that, it's always linked to something that they truly love. Like for instance, you in journalism with this podcast.
Yeah.
So like, I would have talked about like, oh yeah, like what type of who are your favorite journalists, or like what type of articles, or like what type of media sources do you usually go towards to.
And that's beautiful too, because that's so important in the creative process, right? Aligning on, first of all, what you bring to the table, right? And also how that aligns with what your client wants or their vision. I'm sure it's such a treat to see their reaction in the end product, because the way that you approach your work very clearly is intentional, right? And you put a lot of thought into it, and I'm sure 9 times out of 10 it exceeds their expectations. They're like, wow, like maybe I couldn't put into words what I wanted, but this is even better than what I imagined, you know? I want to touch on the fact that no journey is linear. Yeah. Right? There's twists and turns, there's up and downs.
We already talked about like 12 turns.
Exactly. How would you say where you are now compares to what you envisioned for yourself? I mean, could you, when you were little, what did you want to be when you were little?
So when I was little, like that was okay. Let's go with like, because obviously when you're growing up, it always changes. Yeah. So as a kid, like obviously, I was a bit of a smart kid, so I was like, I have to be an architect. Math and art goes to well together. I remember being a kid being like, I have to be an architect because it makes a lot of money, and also it
so
fulfills,
logical as a child.
And then like growing as like a teenager, I was like going through the whole pastry thing. I was like, okay, I could be a pastry chef. But then having that renaissance of art, then I was like, okay, now what do I have to do? I remember in high school, I had like both the food teacher and the art teacher being like, hey, you should go to this school. Or they're like giving me pamphlets compared to the other students that they didn't do anything with. They're like, here's like an art program that you need to get into. I was like, oh, I don't know which one to go to. So like it constantly changes, but there's always been a thread of creativity in every choice. Like if it's not creative, then I'm not doing it.
Oh, okay. I love that. I love that. Should we get into what you brought today?
So let's go with the easy ones first to eat.
Okay. And while you're pulling this out, walk me through your creative process. So first of all, what do we have here?
So we have 3 different types of pastries.
Okay.
So let me just do that. So like I said before, I didn't have enough time to actually come up with a good concept. I just was like, okay, let me just have a common theme throughout all of them, and it's cherry blossom. Okay. Cherry blossoms, I love cherry blossom. It's my favorite time of the year. It just makes me so happy. I literally go out walks finding new cherry blossom trees.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's all cherry blossom themed. So we have macaron, we have a donut, and also we have an entremet. So this is all like 3 different variations of pastries with different techniques into them. So let's start with the macaron.
Okay.
Simple, recognizable. So this is a white chocolate.
You're having one too.
Yes.
Right? I cheers with my
I just don't want to hit the mic.
Indulge me here.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you again for being here.
So this is white chocolate with pickled cherry blossoms, because I believe, I haven't done that much research on the process of making cherry blossoms edible. I just know that cherry blossoms originally are not edible until the pickling salted process.
Oh my goodness gracious. So back to your creative process. Do you start with a theme? So in this case, it's cherry blossom, right? And then how do you decide this is incredible. Wow. How do you decide what type of pastries to include in that collection? And then just walk me through.
So it really just depends on the scenario. Like for instance, this one was just straight up ingredient first and how we could do different techniques on it. But then if there was like other times where one time I did a dinner, I did a whole pastry like
assortment.
No, a menu.
Oh.
It was like a 3-piece menu. It was a Galentine's Day situation. So I was like, okay, what do I do with this?
Oh
so then
God,
I was
missed that Galentine's. To this day, it still pains me.
Oh. So it was a whole story plot. So like, the first one was an ube lavender cake, and that's like that was supposed to represent like, oh, getting ready, perfuming, putting on, making it look nice, having the rouge on, like all that type of stuff because it's a nice floral, nice grounded flavor. And then the second one was a raspberry chocolate Grand Marnier entremet. So obviously that one has alcohol in it. It has bright flavors into it. It's a very bright dessert. It's hefty also, so it's like, it's like bright, but also at the same time, damn it, what's that word? Decadent? There we go. That's what it was. So that was supposed to be like a night out. That's supposed to be that. And then the last one was a to-go, which was a matcha rose mooncake.
Wow.
And that's supposed to be the day after. That's supposed to be like waking up in the morning, getting some caffeine into you, getting some like waking up. It's a nice little pastry. Yeah. So it was supposed to be like the whole story of a girl's day out.
One of the things that I love about how you talk about your process is the start to finish. You know, it's not just the ingredients, it's not how it tastes, but it's how it looks, the story behind it. I mean, as someone who has tasted your chocolates, they were gifted to me by your sister for this Valentine's Day. I remember opening that box and I'm like, wow, like just immediately I'm like, this is already beautiful and I don't know entirely what's in there. There was like a little note that was like, enjoy, right? And there was like a teddy bear and just so beautiful on top of the taste. And I think maybe that's one of the things that people don't give enough credit for in terms of the amount of thought that goes into truly giving an experience. Yeah, no problem. Like truly giving an experience to those partaking in, you know, tasting it and everything like that.
Yeah, so the Valentine's Day box is actually pretty interesting because the first one I did was the year before, and I just wanted to make a box that feels warm when you get it. Like you feel like you're being loved with it, like a really beautiful gestured gift. So a lot of it was inspired by like 1950s type of stuff. Like the song I was repeating, listening to my head was La Vie en Rose. I forgot what year that was out.
Love that song.
But I could see like a black and white stroll through a park with a fountain. Like that's what I see. So I wanted to bring that energy, that feel to it via a box. And the previous Valentine's Day box, I still wanted to do that. And but it was more of a simple, small one that you could just give to a person quickly, and like just make it a little bit cutie. But I do think about how the packaging is. I do think about like how you give it to a person, everything. Like I think about it down to the whole experience because at the end of the day, I want to make something that I would love to have. Yeah. So like if I got something that's like, okay, cool, that's awesome. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. But the boxes themselves, I wanted to make an experience that if I got that, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm happy.
Have you ever seen, and bear with me here because it's going to seem random, but I'm going somewhere with this. Have you ever seen the movie Ratatouille?
Yes.
That scene where Remy, he bites into a strawberry and he closes his eyes and then he bites into a cheese and like he's still closing his eyes.
Grape.
Bueno, I don't know. I remember it as a strawberry, but the point is, it's really that. Like I think about that scene so often because I love food. Yeah. And when you truly get it right, it's almost this indescribable experience where it's like there's explosions in your mouth and it just like feels great. So you've talked about themes, right? You've loosely walked us through your creative process. Do you approach every project the same way? And what I mean by that is, do you have a process for yourself that even if the product is different, the output is different, you kind of have like, okay, number one, I pick a theme. Number two, it takes me like 1 to 3 days hypothetically to then tackle the next step? Or does it really depend on the project itself? Like how do you best work?
It really depends on the product, like the project itself. Like the great example is like right now when I'm working with the two artists, they're just two different projects that we're doing right now. So for example, with the reggaeton artist, his name is Anthon. That was much of a more of a sit down type of situation where we talked about it, where we like, okay, what do we want? I went through his Instagrams, all his past stuff, all his discography, and then we're like, okay, what's this thread that ties everything together? And then with the other artist, Josue, that one was more freehand. It was more like romanticizing his art, and already because like one was like going into the past and see what all ties together, and the other one was more just like being more present and seeing how we can romanticize it. So it's very different for each and every single one. So it's very like custom to the person
and
itself.
hands-on, I'm sure. You mentioned earlier that kind of the common thread between everything that you do is creativity. I also introduced you as a multimedia artist, and you loosely mentioned it, working with other artists, but tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what type of other artistry do you do, and what is it that you love most about that? And also, how do you handle doing everything?
So, oh my gosh, there was actually a really good representation with a chocolate box that was like a multimedia art piece. That was last year's Easter box, 2024 Easter box. That one was the time when I learned how to sew. So the inside of the box themselves was like this beautiful forest green velvet with pearls in it. So gorgeous. And then like doing the photography of it also as well, setting up these sets, editing the videos, all that types of stuff. So it all like went through this whole experience right there. And that's when you're using like all the tools from building, painting, the sets, then like figuring out the composition of how the pastry's gonna look with the like little bunnies that are scattered around, how it interacts with everything, and like how we could make something that doesn't have really much of a face expression, have like show expression, and then like having the box itself being sewed in, and then like seeing how you open the package, how it's written, like everything. So it really does tie down like just the whole experience itself. So, and then like also with other projects like video projects that I do with Anthon. That's actually pretty interesting because I actually learned how to do videography from one of my friends. Back then, we met in high school. Back then, we just like shoot like old school YouTube videos, like think of it like Smosh type of esque videos.
Okay, yeah.
And he taught me how to do like photography. He taught me how to do videography. And then like after that, I kept on learning new things. I learned video editing from him. And then before pastry, I was painting. I had like my Play-Doh with me all the time, so a little sculpting over there. So it just goes back to like the whole concept of pastry is very much mock art. Anything you learn there could be implemented in other stuff.
Yeah. Where do you think you get your creativity from?
The world is tragic and sad.
Yes.
I want to see the world the way how my imagination is. So
it's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
You've also mentioned the Food Network, and you talked about gingerbread houses a little bit in the beginning, but please tell us more about that because I'm sure people are dying to know just as much as I am.
Okay, so it was such a fun experience. I absolutely loved it. So the filming was 10 hours. It was a 10-hour competition. It was intense. Yes, we did have bathroom breaks and like lunch breaks.
More importantly, did you eat?
Yeah, we ate. Don't worry. The food was actually really good.
Yeah,
it came from different restaurants from the
network. I would hope so.
From the area. Oh, little tea. I don't know if I could say this.
Say it.
It's from one of the competitors. I'm not gonna say which one it was.
It's okay.
But
you can tell me off camera later.
Yeah. So one of them, they told us their experience previously on like another competition show, and they said it was like a nightmare, and I was like, oh shoot.
In what sense? Why?
They didn't eat the same food as like the crew ate. Like we had that. So we had the good food that was coming from different restaurants, but they got like a lower grade food. They were not treated well, and I was like, okay. But Food Network, that production group treated us very well. They were super nice, made everything so much fun. Their whole goal was to make you look good as possible.
I mean, how did you even get to Food Network? Like, talked about the beginning.
Oh, this is so interesting. Okay,
just fell on your lap. Like no one just casually says that.
Okay, so there are casting agents. Yeah. And they're on social media. They're always looking for people. And they came across my page. So they saw my page and they're like, oh, wow, this is like really good stuff. Because my pastry page is basically my pastry portfolio. And then they just DM me. And I asked one of my chefs because they were like, they worked with Food Network. And they still are. I was like, hey, is this a scam? And he's like, no, this is what they actually do. They reach out, they DM you, and they're like, hey, you want to audition for us?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. So, like, I remember it was, what year? This was my first time. This was pre-pandemic. So it was like years that they've reached out to me, but constantly going to the auditions. Not going, it's just all like Zoom calls and stuff like that. But unfortunately, at the beginning of the podcast, the question came up, but who is Joffre? I was like, this is hard. And I always feel like that was the thing that like kind of hindered me to like not get onto the show, because obviously when a casting producer is trying to look for people, they're trying to look for archetypes. So when they're like having someone that is literally can't be categorized, they're like,
I think that's a pro thing. You know what I mean? Like what value you bring to the table that you can't be replicated.
Yeah. So, I think I was auditioning for another show at this time, and then I got a message from another casting agent and be like, hey, we have this show going. It's a team building. It's a team show. I think you'll be good with it. So how do you feel about it? I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, we already found a person that we think you'll match with them. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Her name's Donna.
Did you in fact match with her?
Oh, literally.
Was there synergy?
Yeah, no. After the Zoom call meetings with like the casting agents and the producers, when leading up to the show, we will be there like the whole time talking and just talking about experience. And like we're both two different people. I believe she's from Pittsburgh and she lives near Detroit because she does engineering for auto manufacturing.
Okay, pop off queen.
Yeah, and then you just have me playing with flour and sugar.
No. Give yourself the credit you deserve.
And like we were talking about like our experiences and stuff, because she's a gingerbread builder. She loves making gingerbread on her free time, and she's in competitions, like local competitions or like statewide competitions.
That's awesome.
Or even countrywide competitions. And like we were talking about experiences. They're like, yeah, both of us, like we have the same similar experience of like we really can't be categorized, and like if they give us a theme, we try to push it as far as possible, but still within those bounds, to the point that technically you can't judge it, because how can you judge something that you don't know?
So the show was what exactly?
Yeah, so the show was a gingerbread building competition. We had to make a gingerbread structure within 10 hours. It is a 4x4 table that we had to completely cover, and the minimum height is 2 feet. And
that's basically it. Those are the guidelines that they gave you, and then just kind of were like,
it has to be 90% gingerbread. 90% gingerbread.
That sounds like my worst. Like, I need very clear instructions in
Oh no,
life.
they gave us like a whole like thing.
But still, I mean, the final outcome, which I'm sure is speaking your language and it's music to your ears, is kind of like, these are the guidelines. Beyond that, do with it what you will. You know, kind of like pat on the back, good luck.
Yeah. So those were like the big guidelines. The other ones were like, you can make stuff at home. You have to be a percentage that is made home, and then another percentage has to be made in the studio, in the actual competition.
So you can show up on the shoot day with things pre-made.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there has to be a certain amount that has to be made in the location. So we did that, and it was so funny, so funny, because Donna and I, we were a little bit we were sassy. We were a little bit sassy.
Okay, we love that.
So the other two teams, they were making their stuff, but they had like structures underneath it that helps to hold it. Donna and I, we went fully like 100% edible compared to them. And at one point, Donna was like, Donna made like a comment. I forgot what it was. It's on the show. She was like, yeah, it would help. Yeah, it would also help if we used woods and stuff like that for our structure.
Okay, salt.
Yeah.
She said.
Yeah. No, she said like, we're going harder than you guys.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, so what season, what episode for those
Season
wanting
2,
to look
episode 2.
Okay.
Really easy to remember. It's called Elves Elfing Off.
Did you win?
See the show. See the episode.
I love it. Okay. What was that? What was at stake? Like, what was the prize?
So the prize, I think it was $10,000.
Oh my god. Okay.
And then there was also
$1,000 for every hour worked.
Yeah, basically. And then there was also, I think, $1,000. Yeah, $1,000 smaller prize, because it's the gingerbread competition, and then there's also a baking portion of it, and that's why it's a team of twos, because one's the gingerbread master and the other one is a baker.
Okay.
I was the baker, and oh my gosh, this is behind the scene tea. I don't know if I'm able to say it. Actually, I'm out of contract. I think I'm out of contract. I know the contract expired, so
we're in a safe space here. Acá estamos en la sala en confianza.
Let me just take off my shoes. So in the show, we are able to have a binder of our recipes. They're not going to make us do it on top of our heads, because that's just insane. So prior to that, they were like, hey, just give us 15 recipes that you're going to be using that could be more of change, like very foundation recipes. Okay. And we're like, okay, yeah, cool, because during the baking portion, it's only 2 hours. It's the last 2 hours of the whole competition.
Gosh, that's so nerve-wracking.
Yeah. So they were like, you are not going to know what's going to be the mystery ingredient at all. At all. And we're like, okay, cool. But for the audition, they have like a trust process of being like, okay, yeah, cool. You have this one, you make this at this amount of time and use this ingredient. And we're like, okay, cool. So
this one being a challenge? Like, this is the challenge that you're
that's the
tasked with?
audition.
Oh, okay.
So they give you basically a mock of what is going to happen.
Okay. Okay.
So they could prepare you, and they could also see like if you're able to do it.
And how you work under pressure, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So you could see it on the episode. You could see it on the episode on my face when they announced the secret ingredient. So this is not spoilers.
I was going to say,
it's
I'm
just
like,
a
are you going to
30-minute
tell
show.
us? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah,
over
it's a
here.
30-minute show, so you'll see it pretty fast. It's even less minus commercials.
Uh-huh.
So when they announced the mystery ingredient, they're like, Bakers, and I was like, huh, what? And they're like, okay, the mystery ingredient is dried chili.
Oh my God.
And I had the biggest smile on my face.
Okay, so it was a good thing.
Oh, I love putting spice in my pastries.
Actually, I can attest to that. You
Yeah.
did that in this year's box
Valentine's,
of chocolates,
yeah.
yes.
So when they announced it, I was so happy. You saw the biggest grin on my face on the show. And the dessert that I made for that was Dominican bizcocho. Once again, tying it back to,
Yes.
it was a
Such a full
strawberry
circle
ginger
moment.
habanero Dominican bizcocho. So good. But this was the funny thing. So back to the concept of the binder, of those 15 recipes that you're supposed to bring. So everyone was using their recipes. They did amazing stuff. In my binder, when they said the chili one, I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. But none of those recipes were in my book. So I had to do it from the top of my head.
And that's where the practice, the talent, everything, like when the adrenaline, I'm sure,
Yeah.
kind of kicks in and you're driving that car, you know,
Yeah.
hypothetically speaking, on, I wouldn't say autopilot, but quite literally manual, right? 'Cause, like,
Yeah.
you have to be very careful about what you put.
Yeah, no, so it was crazy. So I was like I was just vaguely remembering the recipe in my head. I'm like, okay, I remember the original recipe was in cups, so that makes it a little bit much easier than grams to like remember because it's smaller numbers. And then just like doing it, I was taste testing everything. Behind the scenes, there is catering. So catering is people who come in and bring in foods if they don't have it. So
That you would need to use.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the way how they do it is they look at everyone's list of recipes and they're like, okay, we're going to buy stuff for that episode that relates to them. So obviously I didn't have anything that I had in my book. So like one of the ingredients I needed was fresh ginger. So I was like, catering, is it possible you could get me fresh ginger? I need fresh ginger. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure, we got you. So they did that. And I was able to make my strawberry ginger habanero. No, it was arbol because the original recipe is uses habanero. So I use arbol chili.
Have you ever tried to recreate it?
Oh, I did that literally that Christmas. My whole family and friends are like, you have to make it. You have to make it for Christmas. You have to try it. And so I did it. So I was like, yeah, recreate it.
I love that.
And,
What a cool story and experience.
and the jam is this basically almost the same jam as the diamond heart shaped chocolate in the Valentine's Day box.
Ooh, okay. I love it. Connections everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what goal are you working towards? You know, you've already done a ton, but you have an entire life ahead of you.
Yeah.
So what are you working towards?
So currently right now I'm not fully in the restaurant industry or the culinary industry because I have a caveat. I want to spend time with family during holidays. And
As you should.
And
That's so
in the food
important.
industry, that's virtually impossible. So like I do love food as much as I will spend. Literally last night I was up in 4 a.m. in the morning doing this until I saw the time. I was like, oh, I need to sleep. I could keep on going, but I need to sleep. And I love food. I love sweets. I'm more of a sugar addict. But now I really do want to shift into like working with the two artists I'm working with. That's like building up my portfolio to be like a creative director. That is like my goal. My goal, like, okay, this is gonna be the first time I'm ever gonna say this out loud.
Manifesting.
I've always said this like ever since I was like in high school. I always said like I want to shift culture. That is like my biggest goals is
And what does that mean to you?
So that that's the great thing about that goal is
It can be anything.
it could be anything. It changed. So like I've seen a lot of people like when they reach their goals, they're like, okay, what's next? I have a lot of time left. What's next? So like shifting culture, like one of my dreams to do is have a different perspective on pastry in how it's designed. So like right now what you're saying in pastry, you see all these beautiful stuff, like but but I'm targeting more in the luxury area that they're like,
Okay, fancy.
you saw the box. You saw the chocolate box.
Yeah, it did scream luxury, let me tell you. Very, very well made, carefully curated.
So by nature, like modern day luxury is very minimalistic.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I want food to be campy again. I want there to be so much personality on it. Like for instance, I did a test run with like going into like fine camp luxury pastry with the clown box I made like few months prior. That did not receive well because obviously people when they saw it, they're like, boring. No, not even boring. They're like, oh, it's childish. And I was like, no, it's not.
Like, you're missing the point.
Like you're this is not just for a child. This is for you as an adult. This is for anybody to just have fun. Oh my gosh. So I did try to apply for a job for a creative director.
Okay.
It was for Luna Park. Have you heard of this?
Have I heard? I went one of the last days that it was open.
Same.
It's beautiful. Same. What a concept.
So I've been following them ever since they were announced. And I was in LA the same week they opened in LA. That was for my cousin's wedding, but I didn't go there because I was like, should I go? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to navigate this city,
LA
county.
is a monster.
Yeah, especially for someone who doesn't have a driver's license.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you applied for creative director.
Yeah, I applied for creative director, but within that application list, there's like drop down boxes that you're supposed to fill out before submitting your resume, and one of them was like the college that you went to, and it's just a limited amount of colleges that they picked out of. And I was like, I went to a culinary school. So I couldn't apply to it. But I did want to do it because it's such up my alley. Art, carnival, like that is like perfect for me.
Well, if anyone in Luna is watching or hearing us, call him.
And I went to Luna Park literally before going to Ecuador, like I think 2 days before going there. And like seeing the people there, like I was like, yes, this is exactly how it's supposed to be, because there's moments where you see families with their kids running around having fun, laughing, all that type of stuff, but there was also moments where you see like I forgot the artist, who was it, but it's like this forest that you go into that has a soundtrack with it. So when I was in there, I was just looking around how the lights move and all that type of stuff, and I see kids running around, and then the kids run out, leaving just like 2 adults in there. And then you just see the adults start behaving like kids when the kids go out. And I was like, that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah. Like people are still kids, just with a bigger age. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. You've shared throughout our conversation a couple of challenges in terms of barriers to entry, right? Most recently, you mentioned the drop down where culinary school was not there.
Yeah.
Previously, you mentioned that you think that you maybe didn't get onto Food Network earlier than you did because of the whole, like, who are you, right? So what advice do you have for anyone who may be feeling like they can't be pigeonholed, they don't necessarily fit into a pre-existing box, and how to deal with that and turn it into something that they're proud of and something that can be used in their favor?
So that's a really, really good question, because I'm still struggling with that right now. Because let's talk about branding. When you're talking about branding about a company, a person, or anything like that, you have to have a specific look. It has to be consistent, all that type of stuff. But when you are naturally not consistent, if you're not naturally like the same thing, I'm not gonna use the word consistent because that just sounds sloppy. Let's say when you're multiple things, how can someone understand it as a message, as a graphic, like as a graphic poster or anything like that? How's it gonna understand it? No one can understand it. So I still struggle with that now of like, what do I want to do? Like, for instance, right now I'm in culinary, I'm in media production, digital media production. I'm with creative processing with other artists. Like I'm doing all this type of stuff, but I can guarantee you, sticking to my guns, I am more proud of like sticking to my guns than like trying to be something I'm not, because I've noticed every time when I'm trying to be something that I'm not, it just hits me in the face like a freaking brick.
Yeah. And sometimes we need
Yeah.
those experiences to realize, you know what, I should have trusted myself more,
Yeah.
or I should have gone with my gut.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what do you think your mom would say about how far you've come?
Oh my gosh. Is this therapy?
It's not, but she was very clearly an important person in your life.
She was.
I'm sure she continues to be. You know?
Actually, her last lesson she taught me, like the last thing she like was like, hey, I'm telling you this. I remember this so clearly. Me and my sister, we just came back from school, and my sister was like, you need to get skinny jeans, because this was like early 2000s, late 2000s, going 2010s. Skinny jeans were all the rage. And I, at that moment, I was like, I don't want skinny jeans. I don't want skinny jeans. Like, I don't want that. And my sister, she was like, no, you look stupid. You need skinny jeans. You want to look cool. And then like,
leave it to a sister to tell it to you straight.
yeah, no. And then my mom yelled at my sister, and it was like, leave him alone. He doesn't want it. And then my mom like put me to the side and be like, do not let anyone change who you are. Do not change for anyone. Because I felt like she also knew like at an early age that like I wasn't like something that's similar to other people. So that was like the last lesson she taught me, and that is something that I do carry with me as much as I can sometimes, because there are moments of weakness where it's like, okay, conformed, but I do have that in my head like 90% of the time.
It's beautiful. Clearly, I mean, the work that you do is first and foremost for you, but I would like to think that it's almost to honor her as well.
No, I do have to like say that like my whole pastry career and all my knowledge and everything that I'm able to do, I do have like, as messed up as this sounds, I do have to thank her death for that, because if it wasn't for her death, I wouldn't have gone that direction at all.
Yeah.
So I do owe everything to her of like everything that I've made.
That's beautiful. Last question for you. What is coming up in terms of, right now it's cherry blossoms. Do you have an idea? You're no longer doing birthday cakes, at least how you were doing it. So what's next in that department?
So that's a really great question, because like last year was like the first year that I didn't do a birthday cake. So I'm like, what I did a photo shoot, which had birthday cakes I made in that photo shoot, but it was just for like a prop.
Yeah.
So I really don't know, because now it's almost
okay,
it's almost
by
the
the
same
way.
concept of like, you've reached a goal, now what's next?
Yeah.
It's that unknown area.
Yeah.
So for me, as personal projects goes, I do have these 2 photo shoots I do want to do. One of them I could technically do it right now, but yeah, I could just technically do it right now, but I just have to build some props for that. And then the second one I want to do, I just want to get a little bit leaner for the photo shoot. But they're all like clown related, because I do enjoy a clown. Like I did for my birthday photo shoot, I dressed up as a clown, having cake and thrown in my face. It was so much fun. Halloween, I dressed up as a clown. I just put my phone on the floor and then like took photos of it, and I made the outfit itself and the mask, and posted it. And then I had my friends be like, holy shit, you look amazing. One of my friends was like, step on me, and I was like, no, what the heck, I mean, you're just a simple clown. But yeah, no, I have like personal project wise, just for fun, I have these 2 clown photo shoots. That's what it is.
That's exciting.
And one of them is a reference to an old photo shoot.
Okay.
But in professional, so right now, as I was talking about the 2 artists I'm working with. So right now, with Anthon, we just finished releasing the single Goodbye, the visual for it. So watch it on YouTube, Anthon X Goodbye on YouTube. It's such a great music video. I was so happy to be part of it and helped like create it. It's the whole song itself. It's dark. The whole like how it's written is very dark, because it's written as a suicide note.
Oh my gosh.
But if you actually read the lyrics, it's actually talking about his past self and saying goodbye to his past self. Wow. So I helped with like promotion of it. I helped with making the video of it, like filming and stuff like that. The director, Leo, he literally blew it out of the water with editing and like making everything. It was phenomenal, because the original concept that we had was very more stripped down and very grim. But like Leo, he literally took it another way and like made it, there is that sadness into it, but there's like a hopeful sadness to it. And with Josue, so he is an artist, he's a painter, and we're actually working on 2 events, not in the United States, in Mexico. So we're working on 2 events to work on Mexico, and we're doing like a whole rebranding and doing like market researching for that. So that should be around July, I believe.
Okay.
But
So needless to say, you were booked
Yeah.
and busy.
yeah. And so that one's more far in distance, but we're going to be starting to do posting stuff at the moment of recording. With Anthon, Goodbye just came out, but we are working on other stuff for the summer. And I believe, I'm not sure what the time of this one, but there is going to be a single coming out pretty soon. I don't know if I could say it. You know, screw it, I'm going to say it. It's called Flores.
Okay.
So I do have to text him and be like, hey, just making sure that the time schedule is still like checked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what we're
exciting.
planning to do right now.
I love that. Before I let you go, where can people follow your work? Is there a website? Is there social media you'd like to share? Where can they follow?
So you could follow me at Joffre Goodbye or Joffre Hello. So I do have 2 accounts. One of them is pastry and one of them is just art vomit. You can follow me there. Joffre Goodbye is becoming more my personal. Joffre Hello has becoming more my professional ones.
And that's Joffre.
Hello or Goodbye, whichever one you want.
Both.
Yes.
We're big on supporting people over here.
Yeah, so you can follow me there. You could like message me there. I'm open with DMs. That's how that's how Food Network got me. And that's how like you got me also. Yeah. So yeah, you can connect me there. I do have a website, but that's more of a portfolio website. So if you want to check out my past stuff, that's both pastry and art. I believe I do have a link on both of my pages there. But just a heads up, the website itself is actually split into 2. The same way as the Instagram accounts are.
Yeah.
It's split into 2. It's
Okay.
one side's called the Work of Hello, and the other side's Work of Goodbye.
Okay. Very quickly, why the hello and goodbye?
Ooh, this is a good question. I love this question because it's now I'm just going to talk about me and like fun stuff. So my first Instagram handle was Joffre Hello. The reason why is because my usernames in like gaming and stuff like that was that because growing up as a kid, I was a shy kid. I never, you know, like when,
I could never tell. You're not giving shy.
Yeah.
But I love that for you.
so you know how like when you go to a family party or go to a friend's house, your parents go be like, hey,
Saluda a todos.
yeah. For me, I'm a shy kid, so I'm like right behind my parents, be like, I don't want to. So in my mind, making my account names hello is already me just already saying hello, taking that over. But I have an obsession with opposites. I have an obsession with opposites. There's always going to be like one of the big strings I work in is opposites. That's one of the biggest things. So when there's a hello, there has to be a goodbye. And before that, when that happened, having those 2 accounts, they were very strictly 2 different brands. So for instance, let's go with a color story. The color story of hello is pastel pink, pastel blue, and white, and gold.
Okay.
Those were the colors. Goodbye was more neon blue, neon reds, black, and silver.
Okay.
So you already could see the opposites working there. And hello had more of a cleaner approach to it, while Goodbye was very crude. Very, very crude. Like I have one poster, graphic design poster I made was with a mannequin, just the torso, tits out, and it's yeah. It says submissive, breedable, legible, and I forgot the last word, but it was a joke that one of my friends he made. It was like a graphic design joke, like legible and something else. For like when you're making a poster, it has to be these are the points that you have to pick, and he just put submissive, breedable at the end of it to make it as a joke. So I was like, that's a great phrase. Let me push it as far as I can. That the Instagram doesn't take it down. So it was that.
Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that insight. I know that us, as the 2 yappers that we are, we could go on for hours. We do unfortunately have to wrap, but truly thank you so much for being so open and so vulnerable with your journey. I'm so excited to see the photo shoots, to hear the music and everything else that you'll be doing to shift culture, as you said it. And with that concludes our episode for today, but catch you next week for another episode of Combos with Sazon. Thank you again, Joffre.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun talking about myself.
Oh, I'm so glad. You can come back anytime.